A new employee stood up in a meeting and announced, "Since I have a master's degree, I should be exempt from entry-level work." When the manager denied his request, he scoffed, "Then I'll just refuse to do anything until you change your mind." I smiled, pulled out a termination form, and said, "Perfect, because we just found a more qualified replacement." It was a typical Monday morning in our Chicago office. The conference room buzzed with the usual pre-meeting chatter as colleagues settled into their seats, sipping coffee and exchanging weekend stories. Our manager, Sarah, a seasoned professional known for her fair but firm leadership, stood at the front, organizing her notes. The agenda was set to cover ongoing projects, upcoming deadlines, and, notably, the introduction of our newest team member, Brian. Brian had recently joined our company as a junior analyst. His resume was impressive. A freshly minted master's degree in business administration from a reputable university, coupled with a confident demeanor. Many of us were curious to see how he would integrate into the team. As the meeting commenced, Sarah greeted everyone and swiftly moved to the introductions. "Good morning, team," she began, her voice carrying the authority that commanded attention. "Before we dive into our regular agenda, I'd like to introduce Brian, who has joined us as a junior analyst. Brian, would you like to say a few words?" Brian, seated near the middle of the table, stood up. He was tall, with neatly combed hair and an air of self-assurance. He smiled, but there was a noticeable edge to his expression. "Thank you, Sarah," he began, his tone measured. "I appreciate the introduction. However, I must address something up front." The room fell silent, the casual atmosphere dissipating as everyone sensed the shift in mood. Given my educational background, a master's degree in business administration, I believe that starting in an entry-level position doesn't align with my qualifications, Brian continued. "I feel that my skills and education warrant a higher-level role within the company." Murmurs spread across the room. Some colleagues exchanged surprised glances, while others looked down, avoiding eye contact. It was uncommon for someone to challenge their job title publicly, especially during their introduction. Sarah's expression remained neutral, though those who knew her well could detect a hint of irritation. She nodded slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Brian," she said, her voice calm but firm, "we value your academic achievements, and that's part of why we brought you on board. However, our company structure is designed to ensure that all employees, regardless of their educational background, start in entry-level positions. This approach allows everyone to gain a comprehensive understanding of our operations and company culture." Brian's posture stiffened. "I understand the company's approach, but I must express my disagreement. I didn't pursue a master's degree to perform tasks that don't utilize my full potential." The tension in the room thickened. Some colleagues shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others focused intently on the exchange. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, a sign that her patience was being tested. "Brian, while we appreciate your perspective, the decision stands. Starting at the entry level is standard procedure and provides a solid foundation for future growth within the company." Brian's jaw clenched. "Then I'll have to refuse to perform tasks that I believe are below my qualifications." A collective gasp echoed softly through the room. Defiance on the first day was unheard of. Sarah took a deep breath, her demeanor remaining composed. She reached into her folder and pulled out a document, placing it deliberately on the table. "Brian," she said, her voice steady and authoritative, "if you're unwilling to perform the duties assigned to your position, I'm left with no choice." She slid the document toward him. "This is a termination form. We require team members who are committed to their roles and the company's processes." Brian's face turned a deep shade of red. He glanced around the room, perhaps seeking support, but was met with averted gazes. He exhaled sharply, grabbed his briefcase, and strode toward the door. Before exiting, he turned back. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice laced with frustration. Sarah met his gaze evenly. "We wish you the best in your future endeavors, Brian." With that, Brian left, the door closing behind him with a resounding thud. The room remained silent for a moment before Sarah addressed the team. "I apologize for the disruption," she said, her tone returning to its usual professionalism. "Let's proceed with our agenda." The meeting continued, but the incident lingered in everyone's minds. It served as a stark reminder of the importance of humility and the value of earning one's place within a team. In the days that followed, the story of Brian's brief tenure became a topic of discussion throughout the company. It underscored the significance of approaching new opportunities with an open mind and the understanding that no task is beneath anyone, regardless of their educational background. Sarah's handling of the situation reinforced our respect for her leadership. She demonstrated that while the company values qualifications, it places a higher premium on attitude, adaptability, and a willingness to grow from the ground up. As for Brian, we never heard from him again. His departure was swift, and his impact on the company was minimal. But the lesson he inadvertently taught us remained: entitlement has no place in a collaborative work environment. This experience reshaped my perspective on professional growth. It taught me that true advancement comes not from demanding recognition. 2 weeks went by. Things slowly got back to normal in the office, or at least, that's what we all thought. People had stopped talking about Brian, and our projects were moving forward again. But then things started getting weird. It began with little stuff. Files from the shared server started disappearing or getting renamed. At first, we blamed it on a glitch, or maybe someone accidentally moving folders. Sarah even called IT to check the system, but they couldn't find anything wrong. Then, one morning, I logged into the system and found my project data had been corrupted. A whole week's worth of analysis, gone. I reported it right away, and Sarah was already on edge. She'd gotten similar complaints from 2 other teammates. At first, we thought maybe someone inside the team was making mistakes, but something about it felt deliberate. Then came the emails. An anonymous Gmail account started sending messages to Sarah, the HR team, and even our director. The emails were full of accusations, stuff like team members misusing company time, tampering with data, even stealing information. The strange part was, some of the things mentioned were accurate. Not serious things, just small stuff that only someone inside the team would know. That's when we started thinking it wasn't a coincidence. One of our team leads, Marcus, pulled me aside. "You think Brian's behind this?" he asked, his voice low. I hesitated. "It's possible." He left angry. And he knew enough about the systems to mess with files. "You remember how smug he looked when he walked in? Like he already owned the place." Marcus nodded. "Thing is, Sarah's getting heat from upper management. She's under pressure to fix this, and fast." The next day, Sarah called an emergency meeting. Everyone showed up, tense and silent. "I need to be clear," she began, her voice tight. "Someone is targeting this team. What's happening is no longer just a technical issue, it's personal. And we will find out who's doing it." She looked like she hadn't slept. None of us said anything. But I could feel it in the room. Everyone was thinking the same thing. That night, I stayed late. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Not literally, but like someone was poking around, trying to scare us. Around 8 p.m., the office was quiet. I was finishing up some work when my screen flickered. A message popped up in a notepad file I didn't open. "You replaced me. You think you're safe? You're not. I'm watching." I froze. My heart thudded in my chest. I called Sarah immediately and told her everything. She didn't sound surprised. "I got the same message," she said. "IT is tracing the IP. But I think you and I both know who it's going to lead to." That weekend, she sent out a company-wide email saying there had been an external attempt to breach internal systems. Security protocols were being updated, and all team members had to reset their passwords and use 2-factor authentication. But things didn't stop there. On Monday, Marcus didn't show up to work. We thought he was sick. But later that day, we got word he was in the hospital. Someone had slashed his tires the night before. He lost control of the car on Lakeshore Drive. When I visited him, he was shaken but alive. "I don't think it was random," he said. "My tires were fine when I parked. And I'd been getting weird texts for days." I told Sarah, and she went pale. "He's escalating," she said quietly. "This isn't just about being fired. He's trying to break this team apart." Then came the biggest twist. A background check flagged something odd in Brian's employment history. His master's degree? Fake. The university had no record of him. His past jobs? One had never heard of him. Another confirmed he worked there but was fired after 3 weeks. HR was livid. They should have caught it during the hiring process. But Brian had faked documents so well that no one questioned them. He had walked in like he belonged, demanded a higher role, then started a digital war when he didn't get his way. And he wasn't done. One afternoon, a courier dropped off a large envelope at reception. It was addressed to Sarah. Inside were printouts, pages and pages of emails, screenshots, internal memos. All stolen from our internal server. At the bottom was a sticky note. "Still think I wasn't qualified?" That's when we knew. Brian was close. Too close. The security team got involved after the envelope incident. Sarah handed everything over to legal, and our IT director installed endpoint monitoring on every workstation. We were told to stay alert and report anything suspicious, no matter how small. HR even sent out a policy update warning that any form of retaliation or breach of data confidentiality would lead to immediate legal action. But it didn't help. 2 days later, someone broke into the office over the weekend. They didn't steal anything of value. No laptops, no equipment. Just a drawer from Sarah's locked desk, the one where she kept her project notes, and a private performance log of the team. The drawer was found emptied. The lock snapped clean off. Nothing else in the office was touched. We came in Monday morning to find police officers talking to Sarah and building security reviewing the camera footage. Only, the feed had a 4-hour blackout that conveniently matched the time of the break-in. That same day, everyone's screensaver was changed to a photo. It was a grainy picture of our team, taken from outside the building through the window, during a late-night meeting. On it, someone had scrawled in digital red text, "Maybe next time you'll listen to the right guy." Sarah didn't talk much that day. She was escorted out by security mid-afternoon and sent home for her safety. By then, she had already handed temporary management over to someone from corporate named Glenn. He was the kind of guy who wore a Bluetooth earpiece all day and talked in corporate lingo like leveraging assets and emergency containment. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. Brian never returned his company laptop. We had all assumed it was wiped remotely. IT confirmed they sent a shutdown signal, but for some reason, the command didn't go through. They assumed the laptop had been powered off. But it hadn't. The device was still active. Still accessing parts of our system using outdated login credentials that, somehow, had bypassed the lockout. Worse, Glenn found out that someone had created a ghost account months before Brian was even hired. It had been used to test privileges, plant backdoors, and build automated triggers that ran silently in the background. No one noticed because the scripts were disguised as part of our daily analytics routines. The only reason they found it was because one of the scripts failed and generated a massive error log that flagged during a routine system sweep. Brian didn't just get mad and lash out. He planned this. He embedded himself inside the company, probably for months, maybe longer. It wasn't about a job. It wasn't even about the position. This guy had studied our company's inner workings like it was a game, waited until he could walk in, then made sure he could keep playing long after he was gone. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking back to small things I'd missed, how Brian always asked about systems access policies, how he seemed too confident on day one, how he made casual jokes about looking under the hood of our database. The next morning, I came into work to find my own cubicle trashed. Not physically, digitally. My email account was wiped clean. My inbox, sent items, drafts, gone. Worse, someone sent messages from my account over the weekend, some of which went out to clients. The messages were weird. Rambling, paranoid sounding, full of accusations. One client called HR, worried I was having a breakdown. I was placed on a temporary leave while they sorted it out. That's when I got a text. A number I didn't recognize, no caller ID. It read, "You could have backed me up. But you smiled while she fired me. So now you get to watch everything burn." I stared at that screen for a long time. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Glenn and the legal team. The police came to talk to me later that afternoon. They asked if I felt threatened. I said yes. They asked if I wanted to file a formal complaint. I did, but nothing moved fast. No arrest. No warrant. They said the tech trail wasn't ironclad and that without a direct threat of violence, their hands were tied. Meanwhile, someone kept screwing with the system. We lost a week's worth of financial reports. Our cloud backups were untouched, but the damage was already done. The CFO was furious. The entire company was on edge. HR started investigating internal leaks. People were questioned one by one. Backgrounds were rechecked. Glenn pulled me aside. "I'm not sure how deep this goes," he said. "This guy knew too much. It's possible someone else helped him." I didn't want to believe it, but part of me wondered. Brian was smart, sure. But he was just one guy. Could he really have done all of this alone? Then I remembered something Sarah said before she was sent home. He asked a lot of questions about remote access, VPNs, admin rights. He even tried to shadow the IT team once, saying it was for cross-training. I told him no, but someone said yes. Who? We checked the logs again. This time, with Glenn's insistence, we dug deeper off-network activity, printer logs, external USB connections. And that's when we found it. Another name. Someone from IT. Still employed. Still showing up to work every day, acting like nothing was wrong. And worse, he had admin access. Suddenly, everything made sense. His name was Greg. He'd been with the company for almost 4 years, quiet guy, sat in the corner of the IT room, never really talked unless someone had a ticket open. Always wore headphones, always looked half asleep. Nobody paid him much attention, and that was exactly how he liked it. Turns out, Greg had been feeding Brian information the entire time. They met through a tech forum, bonded over how much they hated the corporate world. Greg thought he was just helping a smart guy expose hypocrisy in the system. He said Brian made him feel like he mattered, like he was part of something big. Greg didn't think it would go this far. That's what he told HR during the investigation. But the truth was, Greg gave Brian full access. He created those ghost accounts. He approved the laptop's extended remote access. He ran scripts at night when no one was around. He even helped fake some of Brian's credentials during the hiring process, using company tools to create documents that passed internal checks. When Glenn found out, he brought both legal and security down. Greg was fired on the spot. He didn't say much, just stood there, pale, shaking. The police were called, and this time they had enough to act. Greg was arrested the next morning. Not just for the breach, but for identity fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction. We watched from the office window as they let him out in cuffs. Brian, though, was still out there. Then we found the hard drive. It showed up in Sarah's mailbox, unmarked. No note. Just a USB drive taped to the side. At first, she didn't want to plug it in, afraid it would trigger another virus. But Glenn had IT check it in a controlled environment. And what was on it changed everything. The drive had recordings, screen captures, emails, even voice memos. Brian had been documenting everything. Not just to mess with us, but to build some kind of digital manifesto. His goal wasn't just revenge. He wanted to expose every flaw in our company, security holes, hiring gaps, favoritism, lazy leadership. And he named names. Mine included. That hit hard. One of the memos was about me. Brian said I laughed when he got fired. That I played along with the power games. That I nodded while the boss cut him down. And maybe he wasn't completely wrong. I had smiled. I did think he was arrogant, and I wanted him gone. But I didn't expect it to blow up into a full-on war. I didn't speak up. I didn't ask if he needed help adjusting. I just watched it unfold, thinking it wasn't my problem. Maybe that was my mistake. HR asked me to review my communications. Glenn was quiet around me after that. I kept my head down. I still had my job, but trust didn't come easy after that. People looked at me different, like maybe I let it happen. Then came the final blow. A news article dropped. Brian had submitted the drive to a journalist anonymously. The piece went viral. Whistleblower exposes cracks in major firm security wall. Our company's name was all over it. The stock dipped. Clients started pulling out. Our CEO did an emergency press conference saying they were taking immediate steps to reinforce trust. Internally, heads rolled. Sarah resigned under pressure, even though she'd tried to do everything right. Glenn was reassigned. Half of upper management was replaced. Entire departments were restructured. Layoffs came fast. I wasn't laid off, but I didn't feel like I won anything. The office became cold. Quiet. People stopped making eye contact. We all kept wondering if we were next. HR made us go through endless resilience, training, and cybersecurity refreshers. But nothing erased what had happened. One day, I got another message. This one came from a throwaway email. Just 2 words, still smiling. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Brian disappeared after the article dropped. No one knew where he went. Some said he moved to the West Coast. Others thought he left the country. No charges were ever filed. Technically, Greg took the fall for everything digital. Brian's part was harder to prove. But I don't think it was about legal wins for him. I think this was always his plan. To tear it all down, piece by piece, until everyone felt what he felt, ignored, underestimated, expendable. And in the end, he got what he wanted. He burned the building down not with fire, but with silence, distrust, and slow, creeping chaos. I still work in tech, but I look at things differently now. When someone new joins, I check on them. When someone pushes back, I don't laugh. I listen. Because once, I watched a man get humiliated in a room full of people. And he made sure we all paid for it.